And he basically said that there was an agent that's not officially represented by the NFLPA that is allegedly going around to certain teams and saying, hey, I got the plug on Lamar. He'll come to your team. He wants out. And by the way, you don't have to even give him fully guaranteed money. Now, no one has corroborated this story, but yet and still, this Blue Check Boy was allowed to go on to another Blue Check Boy show and give a full interview on how his reporting has discovered that, yes, there is a scenario where there is an agent that's not really an agent going around and speaking to different NFL teams and saying, hey, Lamar doesn't want to be a Raven and he doesn't want fully guaranteed money, which counteracts everything that we've been told, again, from the media's perspective, not from Lamar. And we've talked about when Lamar responds, we talk about it here. I'm putting Lamar tweets up all the time. And there was a tweet, I'll get to it in a second. But in regards to what this conversation they had was, if he really wants to leave, if he really wants that guaranteed contract, what's the potential scenario of how this can happen? And the potential scenario is that most likely nothing will happen until after the draft, because according to what this Blue Check Boy is saying, according to his reporting, his sources, no team is willing to give up a first round pick in this year's draft in this Lamar deal. Teams might be willing to be more encourageable to discuss a offer sheet with Lamar post this draft. But as of right now, no one's willing to forfeit a pick, or two picks in this case, but a pick for sure in this year's draft for Lamar Jackson. Now, take that for whatever you will, right? If you want to believe that, cool. But here's the interesting part is, how would a agent that's not really an agent be able to speak on Lamar Jackson's behalf and then tell these teams, one, he doesn't want to be a Raven. Two, also, he doesn't even want fully guaranteed money. Because again, if we're to play this out, let's pretend that's true. If that's true, then you have Lamar Jackson admitting, I don't want to be a Raven no more, and I don't even really want fully guaranteed money. So that would align itself with some of the alleged reporting that has been put out there for months, right? So a lot of Blue Check Boys would be tap dancing if this actually came to fruition, right? Here's the issue though. If you don't want to be a Raven, then why would you go and tell a team you don't want fully guaranteed money? Because if you don't want fully guaranteed money, and that's been the biggest bugaboo between the Ravens and Lamar, why wouldn't the Ravens just match the offer? Why wouldn't they do that? So this is where you have to take the reporting, take the sourcing, and figure out, does this even make sense? Because if I'm to believe this, an agent that's not really an agent, that's not certified by the NFLPA, is allegedly going on Lamar Jackson's behalf and trying to negotiate a deal with numerous other teams and informing those teams that, one, you don't even have to give him a fully guaranteed contract, and then two, he doesn't want to be a Raven. Well, you don't really have a lot of leverage in the whole part of not being a Raven. That's the whole point of why the franchise tag is, problematic in the first place. The franchise tag is extremely problematic. It forces players to stay somewhere where they truly don't want to be. Not in every single case, but in most cases, when you're at that point where you hit the franchise tag, clearly you weren't extended. When you're forced to sign that tag, there's a lack of belief in the team, in your performance. When Kirk Cousins kept having to do the franchise tag in Washington, yes, they had to just pay him a lot up front for that 1 year, but it was a year-to-year deal because they didn't have any long-term beliefs. And even when he probably, let's look at Kirk Cousins when he was on those last 2 years of that contract with the Washington football team. Let's see if we can pull that up real quick, because that was the thing. Like, he even put up good numbers, and they still didn't sign him. They still wouldn't extend him to the point that, oh, okay, you showed us. Like the whole thing of the franchise tag is like a prove it. We will give you a top 5 salary in the league for this 1 year to prove that you can earn that bread and make us pay you even more, right? That's the whole concept of what the franchise tag is supposed to be. All right, so let's pull this up here. Kirk Cousins. Last 2 years in Washington. Started all the games, 8-7-1, 67% completion rating, almost 5,000 yards passing, 25 TDs, 12 interceptions, right? So when you look at this, you don't really see exemplary play. You don't really see high-level play, right? You don't see it. But he was a Pro Bowler this year, 2016. So then on the last year, no, we don't want to combine it. On the last year of the franchise tag, under 500, completion percentage dipped, yards dipped, TD to interception ratio was roughly the same. So in terms of even the QBR dipped a good deal. QB rating was more or less the same, but the QB rating did dip a little bit, and he got sacked a hell of a lot more for the most sack yardage. He got sacked 41 times. So, you know, even off 2 prove-it years, where he gave you numbers that would quantify, like these numbers are better than what Daniel Jones put up last year. These are good numbers, right? For all intents and purposes, for a QB. If you tell me I have a franchise QB, well, what numbers do you expect? I expect 60-plus completion percentage. I expect 4,000 to 5,000 yards. I expect that at minimum, mid-20s in touchdowns and low teens in interceptions at maximum. That's what you got in Kirk Cousins. In these 2 years on the franchise tag, this wasn't even enough to convince Washington that he was worth this bread. This was not enough. So what is enough? So the franchise tag is supposed to be a prove it. From what we saw of Kirk Cousins, he proved it. He proved it. And Washington still wouldn't pay him. So who is this? The franchise tag is only beneficial for the teams. I know fans want to look at the whole thing of, well, they get paid an average of the top 5 players at that position, and that's a lot of money. Sure, it's a lot of money, but not to the billionaires who own the team. Not to the capologists who have to move that money around. It's not a lot. It's not a lot. That's already been budgeted. Like, that's the thing. Like, fans assume these bills just come out of nowhere. Like, these contract numbers just come out of nowhere. Like, oh, Lamar wants all this money. Like, oh my God. Like, they already budgeted for that. The money is there. It's in escrow. Only the Raiders can't pull this off because they just don't have it. But if a team really wanted it, the money's there. They're not fooling anybody. So I think there's a thing where this franchise tag, it only benefits teams. So if Lamar truly has a guy, and who knows, we don't know if this is his own doing or someone on his behalf or just someone being covert with it and wants to then be the hero to run up on Lamar with his findings. But in essence, someone is going around and trying to initiate contact with other teams to see if Lamar can get a deal somewhere else. And if he could get a deal somewhere else, it doesn't even have to be fully guaranteed. And he for sure doesn't want to be a Raven. Where do you sit on this? Do we take this as fact? Do we take that as something that is something that could happen? Let me know in the comments whether this is live on a replay. Let me know, because there's going to be a lot of conversation in regards to what happens with Lamar going forward. And I think there's going to be a lot of misinformation. There's already been tons of misinformation already. As we continue to just have, insiders give out information and then have to walk it back or change up the wording or delete tweets. Like, we've seen all of that in just Lamar getting the tag. Since Lamar had the tag put on him, there's been tons of misinformation. So I don't know if I want to put this in misinformation. This certainly sounds like misinformation to me, because how can an agent that's not an agent be able to get in contact with multiple teams and talk on Lamar Jackson's behalf? Lamar Jackson doesn't have a representation. Cool. That doesn't necessarily mean that other agents can come in on his behalf, allegedly, and then tell teams, well, he doesn't even really want a fully guaranteed contract. And he for sure just doesn't want to be a Raven. This could be a rogue guy. And again, who's telling Mike Florio this? Consider that piece. Is this more team managers, trainers, scouts, assistant to the assistant GMs, these sources that these insiders keep claiming that they have throughout these organizations? Is this another case of that? Is this third, fourth hand information being passed down and now being put out here to us on platforms that are supposed to be informing us? I don't know.